evening. My name is Rachel German, and I will be discussing the lessons learned portion of the CISO deliverable on behalf of the nation-state of New Zealand. Our agenda today covers incident overview, evidence acquired, business impact, remediation success, and recommendations. All items are an observation that has been developed from the cyber attack that did occur. The last item on the agenda will be the recovery overview. We will be starting with the recovery overview for part of this presentation, just to give a little bit more insight on what occurred and efforts that were made to remediate after the cyber attack. So we had various security controls that failed to effectively detect and prevent the cyber attack. The highlighted ones were onboarding and offboarding processes. An asset was acquired along with a confidential password that should have been retrieved after resignation letter was submitted along with the account disablement. For an effective onboarding and offboarding process, users should be onboarded with the necessary access that they need to perform their roles. However, when they are offboarded, all assets should be acquired that belong to the business, and accounts should be removed and no longer have any form of privileged access or standard access. And this is something that should have been tracked prior to the individual being completed as their offboarding. Our intrusion detection systems and information intrusion prevention systems failed to successfully stop the attacks on our systems. End user awareness training showed ineffective. Weak network security and secure communication protocols were identified, as well as outdated operating systems and legacy systems with unpatched vulnerabilities leading up to the attack. Our security professionals were able to contain and eradicate the incident. The incident was contained by a security specialist via malware analysis tools. All infected systems are still under monitoring. Deployment of incident response plan led to the Scrum framework to be enforced so that vulnerabilities were remediated accordingly. Out-of-date assets were removed from the network and unauthorized devices were logged and placed in secure areas. The web server was contained and removed from the network so that our IT team could continue their investigation. Individuals worked diligently and quickly to decrypt the file so that the malware could be removed. Preventative measures were taken to eliminate organization-wide downtime from the denial of service attack. New Zealand Computer Security Incident Response Team, or otherwise known as CSIRT, was able to identify the unauthorized user's account information but was not able to recover the password used for the account. CSIRT determined the account was a standard user account and showed no privileged escalation. Although these teams did work diligently and effectively in remediating the attack, there are some areas of improvement. We have areas that require major improvement in order to defend ourselves at the summit, but also in the future. First, it is important that security awareness be spread and illuminated greatly throughout the organization. We strongly recommend required security awareness training for all employees and enhanced security awareness training for users with privileged access of any sort, both internal and external, which would include contractors or vendor support teams. From an infrastructure standpoint, we need to provide advanced modifications to our current intrusion prevention system and intrusion detection systems so that the future attacks are prevented and detected. Updates to security at the network layer need to be made so that implementation of a tool or system that can prevent distributed denial of service attacks of any magnitude. Firewall configurations and advancements need to be placed on all hosts and show a sense of uniformity. Outdated systems within our environment need to be identified and remediated immediately if possible. If remediation cannot be performed due to the items being considered a legacy item, alternative solutions should be investigated along with removal from the network until determination can be made. We strongly suggest the use of digital certificates. Secure socket layer and transport layer security protocols should also be deployed for secure communication over our networks. Lastly, failover systems need to be put in place so that in the event of an incident, if it were to occur at any capacity, system downtime is limited to the smallest time increment possible. The utilization of a hot site and warm site will work best considering the immediate need for business operations to be resumed. will be discussing attribution. Attribution is when an entity is named as being responsible or accountable for an act, for example, the theft of personal data from another state's computer networks. During the summit, the attackers were impersonating the United States, FBI, and Justice Department. After further investigation, a known contributor of the attack was identified and named as a responsible party. This also goes into accordance with the identified asset and the USBs, which we will be discussing later. For an incident overview, while attending the Global Economic Summit, we experienced multiple cyber attacks targeting information systems that led to disruption, system downtime, and unauthorized access to data. Members of the New Zealand Information Security Team managed to identify the type of attack users were using, which were ransomware and denial of service. Evidence acquired. The following information was gathered utilizing Wireshark. This tool allowed the information security team to analyze all the attack vectors used to conduct the ransomware and denial of service attack. We were able to scan all systems over our network and identify which systems were infected, as well as the acquisition of USB devices. In the snippet, you will be able to see the IP addresses, the host names, the operating system, the ports targeted, and the system purpose. This screenshot also shows the originally encrypted method, but the IT professionals were able to go in and decrypt the message. This is basically the message that the cyber criminals were sending over the network, which gave us more insight into what they were doing and what future plans were in the end goal. We also acquired a letter of resignation. So a disgruntled letter of resignation tracing back to the individual who was assigned the PC that was also located with the malicious USBs was located. Moving on to business impact. The denial of service and ransomware attack caused major disruption to our organization. After review of the entire event, financial analysts and IT professionals discovered that the following impact the attacks had caused to our business. At its core, cybersecurity compliance means adhering to standards and regulatory requirements set forth by some agency, law, or authoritative group. Organizations must achieve compliance by establishing risk-based controls that protect the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the information. Data breaches and known vulnerabilities, along with failure to comply to regulatory standards when protecting and maintaining data, can impact our organization's data. Successful cyber attacks gives bad actors as well as external organizations an insight into how we are not adhering to best practices and policies, displaying a lack of attention to detail on our end. By not having an adequate security measures in place, the cyber attack was successful and led to system downtime, preventing our organization from meeting business needs and objectives. A major backlash of system downtime was financial loss. Not only did we incur the costs associated with having to purchase the tools and resources to become compliant, but we must also replace any assets implicated and accept the deficits caused by not being able to continue business operations. Impacts to the business can be recoverable depending on their magnitude. Regardless, it presents the outcomes that lead to opportunities of improvement. So although the events of the cyber attack are unfortunate, we are looking at it as opportunities of improvement and just highlighting this for better security measures to be put in place moving forward. Now we will be discussing remediation success. Our IT professionals were able to utilize security tools to successfully rectify impacts caused by the cyber attacks. We were able to successfully remove the malware and ransomware, restoring organizational operations. Through deployment of our updated and previously approved incident response plan, we were able to contain the incident and reduce the risk to institutional systems and data and return affected systems and data back to an operational state as quickly as possible. Utilization of Wireshark allowed us insight on how the attackers gained access and what systems they were targeting, along with decoding their messages amongst one another. We were made aware of which servers in our environments were vulnerable and need to be removed from our network. Now, recommendations that we have for moving forward. We believe that performing operations and communication securely is key. Information assurance needs to be improved so that the appropriate measures and controls are in place to deny unauthorized persons to information transferred via our network and systems. This can be done via encryption, security keys, or secure file sharing apps. Benefits of information sharing would be collaborate and build collective knowledge, find better ways of doing things, build a community and learning culture, create better customer experiences, retain knowledge, connect remote employees to knowledge, and the feel-good factor. So one key thing that we like to notice and highlight that we discovered during the summit was the benefits of collaboration and the importance of having an effective SDLC model. The SDLC model we have builds a lot of collaboration and communication amongst the various teams. Because we are utilizing a method that does enforce short sprints, it's very important that communication is effective and it's also happening on a timely manner. So these would be highlighted benefits of information sharing. Now we will be discussing nation versus private business operations. The scope between nation versus private is very different amongst their business operations. For our national business operations, we must adhere to what other countries have set forth in their requirements. Meeting our needs are only the minimum as a nation business operation becomes more complex to include other territories. Private business operations need to meet organizational industry specific requirements, however, can become complex depending on areas of interest. So for the purposes of the summit, all of the nation states provided their recommended security controls and configurations, and it was up to New Zealand to adhere to them. This was something that we failed to that also led to the cyber attack and to the unfortunate event of the impersonation of another nation state. Although we do believe that source attribution is important, enforcement of source attribution should be deployed within our incident response plan and flown down through our infrastructure and CERT teams. Tools that allow us to see who is attacking us and where we will provide insight on what systems and individuals in our environment are most vulnerable. Patch schedules and vulnerability classification can be assigned accordingly depending on the criticality. Source attribution does allow us to have an understanding on who is attacking us, what is attacking us, and why they are attacking us. It gives us a lot more insight specifically when we're building these alliances at the Five Eyes Summit so that we have an understanding on who we can trust and who we can't trust, or who we should put more security controls in place for when or if we do decide to go into any form of contractual agreements with them, as well as making sure that we include the appropriate contractual language when we're going to be discussing any form of agreements or providing resources or acquiring resources or work from one another. It'll also allow us to make sure that we follow the correct chain of commands when it comes down to taking any legal necessary action steps, especially if we're going to be crossing territories into other organizations, as well as understanding for our own internal representative. If we do have disgruntled employees, it's important for us to be able to recognize and know what areas of improvement we might need to do for either specific business units or just in general as an organization as a whole, because threats can be internal or external to us. This concludes the lessons learned presentation. We will now open the floor for any questions, comments, or concerns.